And I see we are now streaming live on YouTube, so I'll welcome everyone to Prescott Town Council meeting for Tuesday, April 6, 2021. I'll call the meeting to order under item 1 and move straight to item 2, approval of the agenda. The recommendation reading that the agenda for the council meeting of April 6, 2021 be approved as amended. We do have a proclamation on Green Shirt Day being added at 17.1 tonight with council's permission. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor McConnell, seconded by Councillor Shankar. Any discussion on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any member of council have a declaration tonight? Seeing no, we'll move along to item 4. We do have a presentation this evening. Under 4.1, we have Folk Fest 2021. I'd like to welcome George Tierney to the council meeting this evening. George, really looking forward to seeing what's on the tap for Folk Fest this year. And thanks again for putting that on last year. It was a fantastic event for the fall and something I think a lot of us really enjoyed as a sort of a way to come out of COVID last year and get back to some live music. So please let us know what you're planning for Folk Fest 21.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for most of all for your support last year, your commitment to the project going forward. And as Matthew asked me to attend here and basically give you some thoughts about some information about what our plans are going forward. First and foremost, our plans are like everything else on the planet, up in the air until we know what the regulations are going to be and how we can do it, how many people we can have, all that good stuff. Nonetheless, we're fully in planning mode and getting ready for September 25th is the weekend that we're looking at for the upcoming event. So forgive me while I look off screen and look at my agenda that I'd sent you already, and I'll just fill in a little bit what we talked about then. What we're looking at for this year is expanding the event. As we know, everyone's quite happy to call last year's event an unqualified success. We had 80 some people in the audience, plus about 15 volunteers. We were allowed to have 100. But with the funding we got from the town, with the sponsorships we received and ticket sales, we had enough money to do the event, put a little bit in the bank. So we saw no need to put any more risk in the event. So we cut off at 80 tickets. This year, our goal will be to have just as many seats, as many bums in seats, as we say, as were permitted at the time. Assuming that we are going to be able to go ahead with some degree of restriction, our goal is to have a 3-day event this coming year. We'll have something going on Friday, September 24th, the main event the 25th, and something going on the 26th. The framework that we're working in right now is that the main show will remain on the Saturday evening, roughly from, we want it to run a little bit longer than we did last year. So roughly from early afternoon, so let's say 1 or 2 to 7:30. At the latest we're going to run to is 8 o'clock. That will allow us to finish as the sun sets and send our guests out in daylight. The other reason we want to finish at that time is on the Friday and the Saturday night, we want to have satellite events. And where the events are going to be is dependent on 2 things. Who's open? Sadly, who's still in business at that time by then is going to be a driving factor. But within the town of Prescott, the assumption is that at the very least, O'Heafe's will be around. Boomers will be open with their renovated facility, and hopefully the Red George will be back up and operating. So there'll be 3 locations that we'll have events running at. The concept is that with the funding we receive, we will pay for the performers to go to those locations. So it really becomes a way to help build local business, drive traffic to those locations, and again, one of the big things is going to be how much performers are allowed to get out there by that point in time. Last year, as you know, we paid each of our performers $500 across the board for their 45-50 minute set. Some of those performers, that was, good money for them. Most of them, they cut us a heck of a deal just for the chance to perform, because they hadn't been on stage since March that year. So we're expecting to get reasonably good names like James Keelahan and Jim Bryson will cost us more this coming year. The intent is that our Saturday night event shuts down, as I say, by 7:30 or 8, because we're paying for the performers that evening in the local venues. We would ask the venues not to have anything going on in the afternoon. So, we don't want them to bring a bunch of other local performers in for the afternoon, offering up free local music, and then competing effectively with our event. The goal will be to have ticket purchasers stick around Prescott for dinner and for the evening. Again, it's all about supporting musicians and supporting the local businesses. So that would be the case for the Friday and Saturday evenings. Sunday, we're considering workshop activities in the world of folk music. What a workshop means is you could have several musicians sitting in a circle, and we call it a songwriter circle. They talk about their music, where they get their ideas, and then they perform a little bit. Or you can do a session, which is a traditional session, and you get a bunch of fiddlers, mandolin, guitar players together, and you run through music that way. So that's the nature of the event as we see it this year. Before I go to our hopes and visions for future years, let you know briefly the other thing that we're doing. We don't know how much yet until next Tuesday, I guess. I'm giving a presentation to the Edwardsburg Cardinal Township. We've gone to them for funding, and what we want to do is, leading up to Upper Canada Folk Fest, we want to support venues in Edwardsburg Cardinal with Edwardsburg Cardinal money. And do that by, we've asked for $3,000, and we will do some lead up events in the weeks and in the end of August, early September, at the venues where we can sit enough people. So those primarily will be looking at the Mill, Joe's, it'll still be warm enough. They've got the patio space out back. Obviously close to my heart, for those that know me, will be Bridgeview and Windmill Brewery. Of course, we've got Happy Crap Hall there, so have 100 people there for sure. And hopefully we can do something at with Sierra at the Johnstown Community Center. So the whole approach we're taking is to expand the awareness of the event by creating up lead up events, satellite events, and really this year becomes the launch pad for the bigger things for future years, because we as a group have discussed it at length, and there's just, we say it only half jokingly, going, yeah, we don't really care if we never hold it anywhere other than the amphitheater. It's just perfect. In our first year, we sort of had dreams. Is it going to move all over Eastern Ontario? Is it going to roll all over the place? Where we've landed now is Prescott's always going to be our home. And if we can secure funding somewhere out in Lanark to do a satellite event at another point in the year, yeah, the Upper Canada Folk Fest will spread its wings that way, and then always buoy up the key event, which will always be in Prescott, is where we've landed with it. So that's me rattling on quickly at length and giving you our hopes and dreams. The only thing I'll add to it is if the town turns to us and sees us as a successful group, I haven't heard anything about the Sunday events at the amphitheater, if those organizers are even considering it. But if the town says, you know what, we want to become the center for live music coming to town, turn to us with the group that we have to roll out other events, to roll out busker festivals, to roll out fundraisers. It's stuff we do in our sleep nonstop, and we hope to become partners with the town in that regard. Any questions?
Great, George, that's fantastic. It's great to see how much you've embraced the growth potential of the festival. And we talked about it last year, what incredible potential this event has. And it's phenomenal to see, even with COVID still with us and likely going to cause some further ripples through the summer this year anyways, if not hopefully the fall. we have some clearance, but this is just fantastic news. One thing I will note right off the bat is we've got a task force working with Augusta Township right now on a number of initiatives, and we're talking. We had a meeting on Thursday, Councillor Shankar and myself and our friends in Augusta, and we did discuss the idea of working with Augusta on some areas like this. So I know we're just kind of springing this on you now. It's great to see the Edwardsburg Cardinal approach, because that was listed in something we wanted to do for tourism as well as approach EC on possible things we could jointly promote. So we'll have to talk to you a little bit online about that, because I think there's some potential the other way as well to incorporate all 3 municipalities. So it is something we want to talk to you a little further about, and hopefully we can expand it even further.
Yeah, we didn't specify Augusta at this point because we hadn't seen or successfully found any options for funding and help, and that there really aren't any commercial venues that we could provide. So we would have to, and we're glad to talk about it, we'd have to start, we think, looking at, an outdoor event type thing. But that's sort of the vision. So if Augusta wants in and there's an opportunity, we'll build something, because that's currently where I live. So glad to support it in any direction.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a really good fit with Edwardsburg Cardinal with the commercial venues right down there to our immediate east. But if there's a way we can work this with Augusta, I know they expressed some real interest when we discussed a few things. They asked us actually to put tourism more on the table at one of our earlier meetings, so we did raise it on Thursday. So we'll talk a little more about that offline. And I know senior staff was going to try to put some potential connections together between the two municipalities as well. So all sounds fantastic. A lot of room for growth across the board here. So I'll open it up for comments, questions for Mr. Tierney tonight from members of council. Councillor Jasmine, then Councillor Young, please.
I just wanted to thank George for his presentation, for his vision, and for the opportunity for the town to be a real partner. I was one of the few councillors who attended last year and loved it despite the cold, and I'm sure it's going to be a success again. So just a thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jasmine. Councillor Young, please.
I was one of the few guys that took too long to request a ticket, so maybe I was in that group between 80 and 100 that we didn't quite get in there. But anyway, I think this is a wonderful project. I'm very supportive of it, and I wonder is it too early to talk about ticket prices and things like that?
It's not too early. Our goal will be, last year we were at $40 a ticket and we sold them in pairs. What's going to drive it this year is the funding and how big a show we build. With you guys have committed the $3,500. We're very grateful. And if there's more, that's great. What's going to drive the ticket price at the end of the day is the funding we receive. And frankly, I think we're on a good track to keep the ticket price low, and it's going to be dependent on the cost of the talent that we end up bringing in. We are, as of today, we've submitted our paperwork to be a nonprofit organization. We came out of last year, I think, with $700 or $800. So that money is going to go towards securing our NPO status. And what that means for money coming in is we don't need any money until right before the event. And the way that we've asked for money from the town specifically is that the funds will go primarily to pay the artists. So if we secure reasonably priced artists that are going to be a good draw, and it doesn't require all the funding that the town offers, then we're not at the point where we want to line our bank account so we can start becoming more generous to other events and such, which will ultimately be our goal. This year, we'll really only need the funding to pay the artists. So yeah, our goal will be $40 to $50 per ticket. It's still a bargain in the folk music festival world.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Other members of council, any comments, questions for Mr. Tierney tonight? Councillor McConnell, then Councillor Shankar, please.
Thank you, George. The addition of your festival to our downtown is an exciting prospect, and I know all council is very interested in it. When you're talking about Augusta, and as Brett mentioned, and leading into it with venues in Edwardsburg, what comes to mind is from a number of years ago, the Roebuck Hall, which was a venue that was rented practically every weekend for weddings and dances and stuff. Excellent place to put on a concert. And what comes in mind to me right off the bat is the Ball Diamond right in the middle of North Augusta. North Augusta is great with the Labor Day parades and all that. And if you could do an outdoor thing, say in September leading up to this festival at the Ball Diamond, North Augusta, I think that would be a great thing for rural Augusta Township to bring them into this whole thing. What you may not know is I'm council's representative on the Shakespeare board. And thanks to council's donation, Shakespeare has been able to update their electronic stuff that they have. And I know that they have been down to the amphitheater and they have essentially mapped out the distancing required to put the maximum number of people in the amphitheater. They have electronic ticket buying apps now, and they can sell tickets for other people. So I would suggest that you get in touch with them because they maybe already have something that would save you time and going ahead and doing, because they can distance people 6 feet apart, whether you're a family, whether you're one person in the amphitheater. They have all that ready, and they can sell tickets for you, print out the tickets right in town. They can be picked up in town. So I think you can party with or partner with Shakespeare for some of this and save yourself some money and bring the Shakespeare group into this. But I'm excited about it, and I know it is going to go over well because people are looking for something to do. The only thing that concerns me is essentially at Christmas, everybody was talking the third wave. Are we going to get the third wave? Well, we got the third wave, and now the other day on the television, what I heard was the fourth wave. And I think it's going to be a race right now as far as inoculations go. And this fourth wave, whether we're going to get enough people inoculated. If we do, then the fourth wave is not going to affect us at all. And you can go ahead with this thing in the fall and it'll be wonderful. But it's going to depend on how quick these this medicines come into Canada. But good on you for going ahead with this.
Thank you. If there is a fourth wave, we are going to go ahead with something. For example, I'm doing so much stuff online. On Friday night, we had our 50th show, Brysonville Schoolhouse Revisited, which is a little place in Quebec, and that I organized the music for with my cousin every Friday night. We had our 50th show. We had 37 musical performers on Friday night as for a marathon session. And the rest of this week is the Canadian Folk Music Awards. We're before the Junos didn't even announce their winners for 6 months after it was canceled. We maintained our date on the Canadian Folk Music Awards of our event last April, and we're live for 4 nights for our awards show this week. So all of which is to say, within the group, we have the resource if we have to go online. I'm probably in a position to say we're going to do something online. That's not our goal. We're hoping to do something live by September.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell, Mr. Tierney. Councilor Shankar, please.
Hey, George, great idea. You know, I'm sorry I didn't make it last year. I'm not a folk music lover, but you know, I'll endeavor to try and make it out this year. You're planning a full weekend of events. That sounds great. I love the idea of, you know, kind of ramping it up in Edwardsburg Cardinal or Augusta to the ultimate weekend. Do you have any plans in the future for something bigger like a Kempville Live or a week-long events, anything like that?
We're hesitant to think that far out, but in the total pink sky world of planning, there's sort of two approaches. One would be to do something with in the property on the south side of 2 in front of the fort. Imagining a large stage with the river as the backdrop, because that is to a degree a natural amphitheater. It does raise up going towards the north. So could you put 5,000 people there when life is really normal again? That's entirely possible. The absolute craziest idea that I've had, which I hope never comes to fruition because I just don't feel like putting the effort into it, is the pit on Forsyth Road in Limerick Forest. We could damn near hold a there. That's the, you know, that is a 15-20 acre amphitheater. So the thing would be, if we're still doing this in 10 or 15 years, it'll be under someone else's direction and we'll float them that idea. But that's as crazy as we've considered.
Hey, got to think big. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shanker. Councillor Burton, and then Councillor Young, did you have another comment? Leanne, please.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Todd. Congratulations, George. I mean, what a great vision, not just for our town, but the surrounding areas. And I love the idea of getting the local businesses involved. It's definitely a win-win situation. And I mean, we could almost call it the Folk Fest weekend and really get the draw into the community and expand from there. So congratulations. It's so exciting to look forward to something in the future. So yeah, thanks, George.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. Councillor Young, did I see your hand up again there a moment ago?
No, I'm good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ostrander.
Thank you, Your Worship. And a big thank you to George. I know the event last year was a bit of work for your group, but it proved to be very fruitful in the long run. And good of you to mention the Windmill Brewery Friday night jams that they had, and also Joe's in Spencerville. Those events are very timely and very popular because people can go out and have a meal and enjoy music as well. So the growth that your group is showing this is the fact that they can certainly be popular all unto themselves for sure. So thank you, and we look forward to September.
Great.
Thanks very much, Mike. Anything else from anyone before we let Mr. Tierney go? I think we're good this evening. So again, George, thanks a lot for coming forward with this again, and all the best for your planning. Anything else you require from us, please don't hesitate to let us know. We'll be in touch as well with just possibilities about the expansion, because if we have to work with our neighbors here in Edwardsburg, Cardinal, and Augusta, I think that just makes for an even better festival overall and ties in a lot of good commercial businesses too that really need that shot in the arm right now. So thanks for thinking of all them. Thanks for thinking of us, and have a great evening. And we look forward to Folk Fest 2021.
Very good. We'll talk to you soon, guys.
Thanks very much. Take care. Have a good night. Oh, and I should just add, because George did mention it, I don't think we have clarity yet, Mr. Armstrong. Correct me if I'm wrong on the Sunday night concerts, but I know we were talking about that last week or the week before, and to seek some input from the organizers on what their plans were and what they can possibly pull off this year with things still a little up in the air with COVID. Matt, did you have anything else on that yet? Because we'll be getting some questions about that from the public as well shortly.
No, I don't think we have anything else to update on that, but we hope to very soon.
Great. Thank you very much. Just wanted to cover that off because George did raise it. Okay, so moving along tonight under item 5, delegations, nothing this evening. 6 is minutes of our previous council meetings. We do have one item under 6.1. That's the meeting minutes from March 15th, 2021, included in your packages. Of course, recommendation is that the council minutes of March 15th, 2021 be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Any comments, questions on that set of minutes this evening? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. So item 7, communications and petitions. There is one item added there for information this evening. That's under 7.1. That's the OPP Detachment Board proposal process. I'll just take that a little myself because the information did come to me and we did pass it through PSB last week. Really no changes from last year, and that the province is now now that COVID is, well, I shouldn't say it's calming down because it isn't, but now that we're sort of moving past COVID dominating provincial government completely, the province is back to their OPP Detachment Board proposal, which, if everyone will remember, is looking at having all OPP detachments in the province reduce their governance down to one police services board model, which would mean here in Grenville, we would have one board for North Grenville, Edwardsburg Cardinal, Prescott, Augusta, and Merrickville-Wolford. Last year to put up a bit of a fight about and look for the status quo. So that's what we're proceeding with, asking for status quo right now. But I know our PSB chair, Stan Kajiski, has also been talking to his counterpart in Augusta and those in North Grenville to seek a meeting of the PSBs. In the meantime, we have a letter prepared to go, just basically what I think we approved last year, asking for the province to consider allowing us to remain with our single police services board here in Prescott. That was our default last year. I think it should still be our default. And the PSB did agree last week when we discussed this as well. And it can't hurt to ask, because I think the current governance actually works quite well. And the other PSBs in Grenville also, I would say I can't really speak for them, but I think they want to maintain status quo as well with their own individual police services boards. So that was brought forward tonight. There's some added information in there, what we have from the province and the timeline and so forth. The letter will be going out in the next day or two to the Solicitor General, Minister Sylvia Jones, and we'll see from there what the response is. And if we have to regroup and work on a joint proposal, we have some other options there as well, of course. So got a little bit of time until June. They want the submissions in, so we'll see how it goes. So we raised it tonight for information purposes, but anyone has any comments, questions, please bring them forward this evening. Councillor Jasmine, then Councillor McConnell, please.
Mayor Todd, I know currently, like, it's our board is 5 members. I had to get confirmation of that from Lindsay, actually, and I should have known that. But the 2 provincial ones that appointees that are now currently empty, they did make mention of it in the question and answer that they are going to be addressing it. I'm just curious, was there any discussion around the conversation regarding this I know the minimum is 5. Would there be any benefit to increasing that to 7 perhaps?
In Prescott alone, or as a larger PSB for the region?
Well, Prescott alone. I think it's important to keep it just Prescott, but.
No, we didn't discuss that. I know the province did indicate they were going to fill those vacancies. So last year they indicated to me, and I know Ms. Velkamp had some conversations as well, but they're always, quite frankly, this happens almost every time. I think when they have the provincial appointments for police services, there's always a delay. This has been a long one though, and it's both positions. So we're just trying to get clarity on all of that. And in terms of membership, we're not proposing any changes. I suppose if the province were to indicate that they were in favor of such a move, that we would be allowed to maintain our own Prescott PSB, we could look at that. I'm not sure how they would take a response like that for that sort of expansion now when they're trying to cut the numbers back.
Yeah, and I guess my point, and I didn't express it well, it would be because the 2 positions are taking so long to fill, having 7 could, give us some wiggle room for the next time, right? Is how I was thinking. But anyway, just a thought. Thank you.
No, it's an excellent point. It is like we are, bare bones now with Councillor Ostrander, myself, and Chair Stan Kajiski. So it'd be good to get those citizen appointments back in there as soon as possible. And we recommended the last 2 appointees to the province, because both were excellent members of the board, but still nothing back as of yet. But COVID has been a problem too, of course, the last year. Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Being a long-term member of the board, I'm sure you have a better idea what's going on with this than the rest of us do. But my question is, if the province decides that they are going to have one board for the entire Grenville district, would we only have one seat on that board? I know in reading through this stuff that we got for tonight, they're indicating that they want both the provincial appointees and the local representation on the board as well. But where does that put us if they have a Grenville board with only 5 members on it? Are we going to get an independent person, a member of the public on the board, as well as a member of council, who I presume would be the mayor? Or is that going to be cut back? Can you give us any insight on that?
Unfortunately, no. And that's one of the problems about opening up Pandora's box here, is that it opens the way for the 5 municipalities in Grenville to sort of jockey for position for membership of the new board. I know Councilor Ostrander, myself, and Stan, and I think Matthew as well, attended a meeting last year in North Grenville. And you know, no offense to North Grenville, because they do have the largest population in Grenville, but you know, they were talking about having extra seats on the board, which would, you know, give them a controlling interest in the board, which is something that, you know, could be potentially problematic. And you introduce politics and people fighting for their individual municipalities for what are always limited police resources. So that was a real concern that we had coming out of that meeting. And that was, I think, I won't speak for Mike, but I think we all shared that same stance. And we just don't know. And there were some comments at that meeting and discussions afterwards on eliminating the provincial appointees, so we could have more local appointees. So we keep the
Makes more sense.
of it locally. But you know, they just, the one thing that we were promised though with the province, that it would not be a one size fits all way to move forward, and we did get indications that they'd be, you know, interested in whatever we could come up with. And I think, you know, the best way to just kind of gauge the temperature on this is to send the letter in, see what the response is, and if we're told that no, we absolutely need a multiple response from the other municipalities, we're talking with them now, so we can definitely present a fallback opinion on that. But no, we just don't have any information really on the makeup of a larger board, and I think it would be a little challenging to come up with that makeup and make sure that everyone's fairly represented, especially with the population differences between a couple of the municipalities. I wish I had more information on that, but there really isn't anything yet.
Thank you very much. Asked and answered.
Thank you. Anything further from anyone this evening? Okay, so we'll get that letter out and we'll provide an update back as soon as we hear back from the ministry. Thanks, everyone. And moving on, that takes us through item 7. Item 8 is consent reports. We just have the information package under consent reports. Then under 8.1, recommendation reads that, actually I'll ask first, does anyone want an item moved or an alternative action there? Since it is just the one report, I think we're probably pretty good, but I'll ask it anyways. Seeing no, so I'll move with the recommendation that all items listed under the consent report section of the agenda be accepted as presented. And that is, of course, the information package. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Shankar. Any discussion on the information package this evening? Councillor McConnell.
I have a question, Mayor Todd, and I'm likely you're the one to answer it because it's back to the police commission again. But let's see if I can find it here. The Police Services Board minutes from January 21st, 21. It says under number 12 that staff implement an interim stop light. What exactly is that referring to?
Let's try just pulling that up. Yeah, good question. Actually, Mr. Armstrong, Mike, do you remember that one with the intermittent stoplight?
Well,
in?
I think we were talking about the fact that the full run of King Street doesn't have any
Oh.
traffic interruption. And the OPP mentioned that they could put a portable stoplight up working intermittently sort of as needed. And we just didn't take it any further, and it didn't come back up at the most recent meetings.
Actually, Matt, you raised this initially, is looking into the possibility of putting the downtown, the flashing reds on a timer. So we would actually have them, whether it's every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes, every hour, they would actually cycle on their own without somebody pressing the button. Matt, did you want to comment on that? I don't think we got a report back on that, if it was doable and Highway Traffic Act and so forth.
Right, absolutely. So we're still investigating on the capability, as well as the making sure that it doesn't cause people to just ignore the red light if there's no one at the stop walk. So those are two things that we're still investigating, and we'll report back to PSB into process.
Yeah, so, sorry, Councillor McConnell, I that one slipped my mind either. The motion was just to look into that, and just exactly what Mr. Armstrong mentioned. This is a way of trying to slow traffic downtown, so there's not full-time traffic lights going east-west, but it would move at an intermittent basis, so people would have to stop more often than they do now.
If I may,
Sure.
I think it's a horrible idea. Every year, for many years, we took the stoplights at St. Lawrence Street. In the summer, we put them on working. In the winter, we put them on flashing. And I walk through there at least once a day, and invariably you see people going through the red light because it was flashing the day before. And you see people stopped at the orange light that's flashing because they're used to it being a stoplight. I think it's totally confusing. We made the decision to eliminate those stoplights and go with stop signs. And I think to do anything else at this point for a temporary period of time would just be confusing to people. I think that's a horrible idea.
Well, it wouldn't be temporary. It'd be a permanent change down there where the lights would cycle on a regular basis. But like I said, nothing was brought forward as any solid ideas yet. Matt was just going to look into it and bring it back, because we do have the issues with speeding on King Street in particular, and the ends of King. As we've seen, the OPP have had quite the presence there the last couple of months, particularly on the east end, but also in the west end. And they just got somebody for stunt driving yesterday, I believe. I think there was a post in the OPP East Region's website today. So they're out there trying to do it, but it is still an ongoing concern, both with residents and with some comments at the board. But anyways, no decisions have been made there yet. It's just so that motion is actually that we implement an intermittent stoplight. It shouldn't really read that, because we didn't agree to implement it. We just agreed to look into it. So that wording should probably be flagged.
Is that not something that should come before council for a decision on requesting that?
Requesting it, requests, as we've always had, we've had recommendations from PSB flow up to council, but council has the final decision on it, of course.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, that wording is just not quite correct there from what we discussed. PSB doesn't make the decisions, they recommend out. Anything further on the information package this evening? Seeing no, I'll proceed with the motion then. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone. So under item 9, committee reports, nothing there this evening. 10, mayor's portion of the evening. Just got a few things I'll note quickly. In terms of United Counties, had joint services this morning, was the first of our Tuesday meetings. We've changed that schedule there, as came before council a little while ago. Did get a nice report this morning on the SSRF funding. That's the social services relief funding that went out last year for COVID. Interesting summary there. Perhaps I'll try to get that report for council just so people can take a look at it, because it does show how some of that provincial funding did flow through the counties and did help local agencies in Prescott, like Food for All Food Bank. or South Grenville Food Bank, I guess is the current name. Housing meeting there had 2 weeks ago. We've pretty much finished up our housing planning and the preparation part of this process, and we're moving into the recommendations for action items coming at the next meeting. And that's something I'm been wanting to bring back to council for quite some time, and I hope we'll have something really concrete there to bring forward. Obviously, we're working ourselves into quite a situation here now. I think I read a report in the Globe and Mail not long ago that housing values in rural Ontario, or maybe just rural Eastern Ontario, but I think it was rural Ontario overall, have gone up more in the last year than they had in the last 30 years combined. It's a pretty horrifying stat in some ways. It's good for people who own the properties, but it's going to make home ownership increasingly out of reach for an entire generation of people looking to buy their first homes, even in places like ours, which have historically been much more affordable than the urban centers. So housing affordability is a major issue. It's something I think we probably need to look at with our official plan and with what we do locally, what we do with Augusta, and what we do with the counties. So at any rate, affordable housing is a major topic right now, and I'll try to bring something back as soon as I'm able to when we move along with that committee. It's been a long process, but it's been rewarding. I wanted to note that the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville also announced their new CAO today, taking the place of the retiring Andy Brown. A gentleman by the name of Raymond Cowlery will be taking over shortly. He comes from a position of CAO in the town of Napanee, where he was there for the last 24 years. So I want to welcome Mr. Cowlery to Leeds and Grenville. Look forward to working with him as part of the joint services team at United Counties. We had a corridor meeting last week, St. Lawrence Corridor Dev Commission, a good update meeting, some good information there. Again, nothing dramatic to report on that meeting, just fairly standard update from the corridor, our monthly meetings. We had our planning advisory committee meeting last week. That was Tuesday, the 30th. I'll let the chair comment on that if she'd like to this evening. And I'll also note, attended the Augusta Mayor's Breakfast. I think we had the most council presence at that breakfast this year. I think there were 5 of us there. So I want to thank everybody for attending. I had to go through our presentation pretty quickly there towards the end because we had another meeting coming up right at 10 o'clock. So I had just under 10 minutes to plow through a very good presentation that was put together by Dana. I want to thank Dana for putting that together for me. Had some really good items to highlight, but the one I want to note again, that is the big one, is the return on investment for the CIP. I think we're at roughly, and Dana, correct me on the numbers here, but we're around $600,000 in total investment, including both the grants and the loan. And we've got a return on investment. I think it's almost, $9.7 million in the downtown. That's shows a really strong success for the CIP. Granted, roughly half of that is the apartment building downtown, but they all count, and that is a major investment in the downtown. So that's a huge success for us, and does show we're on the right path with downtown rejuvenation. But unfortunately, as we've seen, COVID has done some real damage down there as well, and we are in a period of recovery. But I think because of investment like this, we're well positioned to make a solid recovery downtown over the summer and the fall to come. So I just want to thank Dana for that presentation, and thank everyone for attending the Mayor's Breakfast. I thought it went very well again this year, and thanks to Augusta for putting that on, and also Wendy Onstein. I guess Wendy's been a big part of that, organizing it for years, and Wendy's retiring a little later this summer, so that was her last event. I just want to thank Wendy for all her hard work there as well. So with that, I think that's everything I have this evening. So we'll move on to item 11, the outside boards, committees, and commissions. And as always, start with Councillor Burton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. You're right. I'm just going to echo the Mayor's Breakfast. It was my first time participating, and it was great to see all the success that we have in our community. I also attended the International Women's Day. It was hosted by Wendy Onstein and Jeanette Bobineau, and another great success stories there for local women getting recognized for all their achievements. I also attended the Chambers Award night. Again, lots of success. I love seeing the success that we have in right here in our own community. I also wanted to thank our town staff in the operations department. They're already out cleaning our streets and sidewalks for the last few weeks. So it's great to see that we're already on top of that. So anyways, that's it for me. And maybe just a suggestion, maybe Dana, you could send the presentation out to all of council that from the mayor's breakfast, if possible, for those that weren't able to attend the mayor's breakfast is something interesting to read and to be proud of. So thank you.
Ooh, thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Moving on to Councillor Jasmine, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Great suggestion, Leanne, because I really enjoyed the presentation. It made me very proud to be part of the town of Prescott and the work that the CIP program has accomplished to date. The planning committee met last week. It was successful, but there was one item that we had to defer. And so we are meeting again next week, but hopefully we will see resolution with that item then. And that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jasmine. Don't know what that was. I saw there was a second caller came up as Matthew Armstrong there a moment ago. It's gone now, though.
I think, yeah, I think we have it solved.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Councillor Jasmine. Councillor McConnell, please.
Glad you mentioned that. It's usually my computer that's going wacky, so I'm glad it wasn't just me this time. Not too much to report, Mayor Todd. We at Walker House, of course, we're still not able to access the facility due to the flood and due to the virus, but Susan does have a lot of things going on, not only online, but with the better weather, things are going on outside that people can give the call to her at Walker House and get in on. I know they have a walking club now 2 days a week, one down at the marina, I believe it starts in that area, one behind Walker House. They were doing one starting in the north end as well. I'm not sure if they're still doing that. There are tours, virtual tours that you can get in on that are quite interesting as well. The library, of course, unfortunately, due to our lockdown, is now closed to foot traffic and will be until at least the end of the month. This 4-week period is over. However, the staff are still there. They're taking the time to do some much needed recataloging, sorting through stuff, things like that when it's busier, they just don't have time to do. But you can call in, email in, whatever you want, and ask for a particular book or a movie. We rent movies as well. They can be picked up at the door, and you can drop off books that you have at the facility. They are using the west door, the old, I guess would be the old boys' door if it was still the high school, to do that. Shakespeare, we have a meeting next week, but at our last meeting, we decided on a way forward for the season. I can't spill the beans. It is coming out in dribs and drabs over the next 2 or 3 weeks with an announcement, so I'm not going to spoil that. I will leave that to the publicity side of the Shakespeare group. That's it for me, Mayor Todd. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Councillor Ostrander, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a lot to report. Our Connect Youth group has finally hammered it out that after listening to several presentations and narrowing it down to two agencies that we were sort of toying with who we were going to join with, the YMCA of Brockville and the John Howard Society in Kingston. And it came down to a reasonably narrow vote. I think it was about 6-3 or so. And we've decided to go with the John Howard Society in Kingston. Mind you, they have an office in Brockville, and that'll be the one that we're most closely aligned with. that's probably going to take about a year to shift that whole operation that Connect Youth perform over to be part of John Howard Society. So that's going to be a bit of work, and I somehow allowed myself to be voted onto the transition committee for that. So anyway, I'll be locked into that for some time, just getting it, see that it's done right. That's the main thing. The only other thing I have is the end of this month marks 1 year that my trusty neighbor and I have been delivering groceries for the food bank every second Friday afternoon. It's about 25 stops we make using our own vehicle. Mostly in town. There's 2 or 3 in Johnstown, and there's 2 or 3 in North Augusta. And that takes us the better part of the Friday afternoon. We're currently recruiting a couple of other individuals, a second team, so to speak, so that we can get a little more time off, I guess you could say. But anyway, that's went very well, and I know the food bank's very appreciative of our efforts, and it's just one of those things you do, and you don't ask any pat in the back for or anything. It just works well. That's all. So thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks very much, Mike, and thanks for noting all of that, and thanks for your commitment there to Connect Youth and delivering there. You've always done a lot around town, but hats off to you for your commitment, how much you've done. So good to know. But and the other thing on the Connect Youth, though, can we now that I don't know when they're going to be at the position they want to talk publicly about this, but maybe through Councillor Ostrander, we could get a request to get a presentation back to council on what this means and what's happening, because Connect Youth has obviously been such a major player in the community with assisting young people in times of need. They were actually one of the recipients of the SSRF funding from the province through the counties today as well, and just an amazing group that does incredible work. And just like to hear how that's going to be enhanced by that partnership with the John Howard Society. So if we could get a request out there, Matt, Lindsay, if working with Councillor Ostrander, see if we can get a presentation back. I think we'd all love to hear from them directly on that when they're available. But thanks.
Yeah, and I just, if I could add to that, Your Worship, it's probably going to be another month or so before we have some bearing as to how we're heading into this amalgamation. And just FYI, Nori Spence is the chair, and I'm sure she'd be more than glad to come on at a council meeting and just give you the layout of how this is all going to unfold.
Sure. Yeah, we've always been trying to be the best partner we can with Connect Youth, and however the group evolves, I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think we'll continue to be there and do what we can to assist them in that mission they have locally. It's such a great group. So good to hear. And if we could just follow that up and just whenever their availability is, whenever they're free. Thanks again, Councillor Ostrander, and moving on to Councillor Shankar, please.
Thank you. I also attended the mayor's breakfast. It wasn't the same as the normal mayor's breakfast, but it was still pretty good. And there was a good presentation from Burnbrae Farms and Mr. McFall there. That's what cut into your time, Mayor Todd. But we had a great presentation. I thought it was really well done. And it's good that Councillor Burton suggested we send that to everyone so everyone gets a good look at it. Also with that, I attended that meeting of the joint initiatives, and I think there'll be a further update on that coming out soon. So other than that, we'll keep moving on through another lockdown.
Sadly enough, and who knows what tomorrow's going to bring with the next announcement. Thank you so much, Corey. And wrapping up as always with Councillor Young, right?
Thank you, Brett. Yes, I agree with Gory. I did miss the breakfasts that we are served at the annual meeting. People from the Snowmobile Club do a great job. So we missed that, but we did have a good presentation. St. Lawrence Lodge, I am quite certain that in this current condition, we went from red to more than red. And so there are no visits allowed. I'm almost certain that there are no visits allowed at the lodge I would suggest that if anyone wants to go there, they better check with the office first before they make a trip to Brockville. Also noted from the last meeting we had at the Board of Management of the Lodge, we are waiting on answers to some $4 million worth of requests that we put forward last year on the infrastructure of long-term care homes. So like Prescott is waiting for an answer on our arena, the Lodge is waiting for answers on 4 or 5 major projects that total something like $4 million. So once these things start to flow through the system, there'll be a hub of activity all over Eastern Ontario. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young, and thanks everyone for the updates this evening. We'll move on to item 12. A number of items are under staff reports tonight. 12.1, staff report to council on the cannabis license holder notification of municipalities. Recommendation there reads that council directs staff to bring the attached resolution regarding the notification of local authorities of any license issuance, amendment, suspension, reinstatement, or revocation within the municipality to the council meeting of April 19th, 2021 for final review and consideration. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Shankar, seconded by Councillor Burton. Ms. Velkamp, you had that report. You want to just give us the highlights, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the report looks again at concerns from municipalities for more communication from Health Canada. Municipalities are looking for more communication specifically regarding license issuance, amendments, and suspensions. That would focus on commercial growth, cultivation, harvesting for any cannabis, whether it's for medicinal, recreational use, but it would be commercial. It would not apply, however, to individuals who are permitted licenses to grow cannabis for personal use. The report also touched briefly upon concerns regarding conformance of cannabis producers to municipal zoning bylaws and land use planning. And cannabis production will be contemplated as part of the official plan and zoning bylaw reviews. The resolution attached is based on resolutions of support from the Township of Brock and Town of Fort Erie. Both were sent at the end of March of this year, so all the information is up to date and current. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Velkamp. Open it up for comments, questions from members of council this evening. I know there was, so Councillor Young, was it you that spoke to this after an information, this was included in an information pack a little while ago?
Yes, it was, Brett. I like the resolution. I'm certainly going to support it. I only wish that we could suggest very severe penalties. It's not our prerogative, not our problem, but I would hope that people who do not obey these rules and put our health workers, our firemen, our policemen in jeopardy would receive severe penalties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Other comments, questions for members of council this evening? Seeing none, I'll proceed with the question then. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. Moving on to item 12.2, that's staff report 33-2021 on Riverwalk Park, Kelly's Beach, Waterfront Trail project updates. Recommendation reads that council directs staff to implement the improvements noted in staff report 33-2021 for Riverwalk Park, Kelly's Beach, and the Waterfront Trail, and ensure they're within the 2021 budget project's budget approved by council. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Young. So we'll proceed with the staff report, please. Mr. Armstrong is.
I believe this is
Nathan to take that.
Mr. Richard report.
Over to you, Nathan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Todd. So we had quite a few projects that we wanted to present to council that have been on the list from council for staff to look into. And so this report kind of steps through 3 different areas along the waterfront, and goes through some of the upgrades that we are proposing to do at the beach, at the Riverwalk Park Gardens, and then on the Heritage River Trail. And some of this kind of builds on the theme as well from the recreational master plan done in 2018. So at Kelly's Beach, it's a frequently used amenity, and I think probably even more used with COVID situation in place, probably this summer. So one of the things is the retaining wall that was built probably at least over a dozen years ago. It was constructed out of patio stones, I think, from the pool deck at the time. And so what we're proposing is to remove the stone that's there, push it back a couple feet to the west to get a little more space on the beach. So expanding the beach area a little bit, and remove all the stone that's there, and then along that whole wall, reconstruct it with some nice stone kind of steps, and also ledges as well, as it kind of steps up going to the west, but then also it's going to step up also kind of as the grade comes up towards the road as well. And so the design that you see that we kind of put together in the appendix or the attachment, that was done through one of the operations staff who has some experience with stonework and interlocking, and he has a lot of good ideas on how to put one of these projects together. So we relied on his expertise and his knowledge to come up with how to do this, and he'll also be instrumental in being on site and leading the group as well as they construct it. So the other thing, so the retaining wall will come down, and then there'll be a set of steps as well at the base of the retaining wall that will kind of smaller steps that allow you to step up into the pool area. So, and then they'll be protected as well with some heavier rocks so that they won't get damaged. And so this will allow, a nice retaining wall that will be there for dozens and dozens of years without any issue. And so the next item that we looked at was a ramp, an aluminum ramp, kind of as you're coming further down into the water, kind of across where the pool is. It would be an aluminum ramp that would go from the shoreline and step into the water at a fairly slightly, just a small grade. It wouldn't be considered an accessible grade, but it will be a slight grade that you could go down into the water from that area, either kind of the splash pad area or the pool area. And we're looking at that to be an aluminum ramp, 5 feet wide and about 20 feet long, and it would be removable in the winter time as well, so it doesn't get damaged from the ice. The next item at that area at the beach that we looked at was putting a dock for either non-motorized watercraft like canoes or kayaks, and then also for people to use to jump into the water. And as we kind of looked at that area, it doesn't get very deep very quickly. As you walk out that beach, there's a lot of sand that has been kind of, I think, pulled into that area. So you'd have to go quite a ways to get a decent depth, I think, for to have it as a potential jumping platform. And then you also, as you kind of continue to go south, you start to get into the channel as well. So I think what we want to do is look at that a little bit closer and see if that is the right area for that, or if there's another area that we want to look at as far as a recreational type dock for the community. So we will look at that, and we'll come back to council at a future date with another recommendation. So the total budget for the 2 retaining walls is about $16,000, and that's with the bulk of the labor and machinery supplied by the town. And the aluminum ramp was budgeted at $8,000 for a total of $24,000 for the beach area improvements. Then the next was the gardens at the Riverwalk Park.
Ethan, I'll just stop you there and open up discussion on this, because these really are really separate items. So I'll just see if anyone has any comments, questions, any discussion on what the Kelly's Beach portion of this evening. I see Councillor Jansman with her hand up to start us off. Please, Teresa.
Lee, I think you were first. Does it matter to you?
No.
I didn't
Okay.
see your hand.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Todd. Thank you, Nathan. I love the idea that the staff with their extra talents are being tapped into. I think that's great. at one point, I think I recall, Mayor Todd, that you were concerned that there was, forgive me, I can't remember what you were saying exactly, but something about piping or something where the rocks are, old piping or old something. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm just wondering if that's if that would be part of the improvements as well, is getting rid of them or burying them better or whatever needs to be done.
There were actually a couple items, and if you note on the map on page 25 of your agenda, there's a drainage pipe that gets uncovered almost every summer, and then we have to cover it up with sand again. It's over right by, if you go where it says 35 feet across, if you go to the left, it's pretty much right there towards the beach. So I don't know if that's being removed or not. And the other item I'll note along the same lines is at the top where you see that red line where it says 60 feet, if you actually take that arc right across, and you can sort of see it on the Google Maps picture, there's a line there, and it's basically it's old railroad tie or what it is, but it's
okay.
up, and there are spikes sticking out of the ground there that are proving to be a little dangerous. So I think that's going to be removed this summer as well. So yeah, I think if I'm guessing, those are the two items you're referring to that I've mentioned.
Yes, they were. Okay, that's great. Thank you. That's all I have. Looks wonderful.
Nathan, any comment on those two items?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Todd. That's right. There is a couple storm drain pipes that kind of come through over in those areas that are they're kind of shown at the surface. There's one a green one on the east side, and we'll make sure that we cover that up with larger stones so it's not accessible and couldn't get wouldn't be easily uncovered. So we'll make sure that we tend to all those little things as well as we go through the construction of it.
The one though on the east side, it won't be able to be covered with stones because that's actually right over that hole. It's that stretch between where that arrow is, probably runs about 10 feet to the south or so. So I don't know if that can be cut off further or whatever, but it's a significant trip hazard. It's right on top of the sand, sort of. Yeah. Councilor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. That sewer that you're talking about, or pipe or whatever it is over by the pavilion on the east side of the beach, that's the outlet for the drain that is at the foot of St. Lawrence Street. And it's not the actual outlet that's the problem. It's the pipe that runs right close to the beach that keeps getting exposed by the high water. So either they're going to have to run the new break wall to the west of where that pipe is, or they're going to have to move that pipe back somewhere, because otherwise it's just a waste of time. It's every year, it's the same thing. That's not what I have my hand up for, but it just occurred to me because Teresa mentioned it. But being a dog walker and going through that park on a regular basis, what I notice, am I still on? Because everybody just disappeared.
We all fell asleep, Lee.
Now, come on, Ray. I've only been talking a few seconds here. No, what I was going to say is being a dog walker and having gone through that park for years, I know a number of people whose dogs go into the water. I guess it would be south of the big tree that kind of anchors the corner of the beach there. And I'm wondering, we have some of those heavy cement pieces that form the break wall on the east side. I'm wondering if we can put 2 or 3 of those, kind of clear some of the rocks away and put some of those there. I've had some comments so them and their dogs could walk out into the water without getting into the rocks and all kinds of stuff. That would be a nice thing. We have them. We're going to have to do something anyway, and it would be a minimal effort to the project.
Yeah, exactly. Through you, Mayor Todd. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think as we look through the project, I think, yeah, you're right. There's lots of stones there that we want to minimize how far we take them, if they can be utilized along the shoreline. And I think that was one of the areas that the guys identified that, if we can use those big, nice slabs to kind of lay down and again, continue to protect the shoreline. That's great. And I hadn't even thought that it would be a nice thing for, for people to walk their dogs into the water with. So it's an extra added benefit.
Great, thank you.
Anything further on Kelly's Beach? Councilor Burton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I do like the idea of the stairs going down and how the picture shows that it's a nice flat surface for, I know there's a group of older adults that hang out at the beach every day. And I think instead of walking through the sand, that they could walk down those nice flat rock stairs. I do have a comment about the ramp. We're talking about different locations, and I think the best location, in my opinion, would be closer to the pool, not so close to the splash pad. You don't want people coming out of the water right there near the splash pad with some sand and dirt on their feet or what have you, and just walking into the splash pad, because that causes an issue with our filter system in our splash pad. Could we look at the same area that Council McConnell was talking about, putting that ramp? So instead of walking the dogs into the water, we could walk down the ramp into the water near a certain area. I mean, I think that's a great addition, because people do want to let their dogs go for a swim, and if they can walk down a ramp, that would be fabulous and easier for the pet themselves. So it's something to think about for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, any way we can actually make it easier for people to let their pets get in the water in the summer. The only concern I have, though, is there are a fair number of people that don't exercise common sense when they're walking their dogs down there. I've witnessed enough fights and near fights, and it would be difficult to have people and dogs utilizing it at the same time. But I mean, I'd be all for a dog only section. I think that's sort of what Lee was getting at there. We really do need something like that downtown, whether it's here or, I mean, one of the areas that people use are down by the old coal docks. There's a beautiful little spot there that's almost a perfect little beach. And there's a few rocks that actually be great if you could remove those, and you got a perfect doggy beach down there. But anything we can do there, if there's a way to adjust this, it sounds like everyone on council's interested in it. And we certainly do have enough people that walk their dogs down there and would like the chance to be able to cool them off in the summertime. So if there's a way that staff could take a look at this plan and maybe come up with an alternative there, everyone okay with that? See what could be done for it. I think people in town would be very appreciative of that. Any other comments on the Kelly's Beach plan? Gory, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just thinking about the ramp. When we put the ramp in on the dive site, it's so subjective to the height of the water, right? So at one point, people are complaining that it was too low, then it was too high. So I just want to be careful when we're going to put a ramp in, that it's not going to be the same thing. Because if they're jumping 2 feet from the ramp into the water, that's going to be a problem for some of those older people that are going to try that. So as long as we keep that in mind, I don't want to do your job for you, Nathan, but I just remember someone complaining to me about the dive ramp, and I thought it was a great thing, so anyway, so just a heads up.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Yeah, point taken. And the guys are that have looked at it, they're conscious of the water level and kind of the ideal placement of where that goes. And it's an aluminum ramp, so it's going to be something that if we do need to adjust the position, I think we could. So we'll definitely keep that in mind.
Thank you
very much, Councillor Shankar. Any other comments on the Kelly's Beach section of the presentation tonight? Just have one myself. I'm a little disappointed, although I can understand why, that dock for non-motorized watercraft. There are a lot of people that use kayaks down there, and I understand that it's going to be looked at a future meeting. But what does future meeting mean? Because are we going to be able to do something like this for this summer? And the other thing, I think Councilor McConnell brought it up, and it's been raised a couple times in the past about the possibility of a new raft down there for swimming as well. That would be positioned a little farther out. I don't know, a lot of this Coast Guard would definitely have a say on a lot of this, and I'm not going to guess that Coast Guard may have had some input into that dock already. But any update, can staff let us know when we can expect to get something back about this? I mean, I would imagine we're going to see huge crowds down at that beach again this summer. So the more we can do to make for the most amenable site, the better. So any comments on that timeline and what we could be looking at here?
Yeah, so I think that we're gonna, part of it is the water level is so low right now, so it's so difficult to kind of assess what would be an optimum location. And so I think if we have another 2 weeks to a month, we'll be able to get into the water, check the heights, and understand what kind of depth you'd be looking at in certain areas. And is it too far out into the channel where it just wouldn't be safe as far as like having people within the water and then boats going by and the Coast Guard as well. So I think I just want to take a closer look at the water depths and to make sure that it's safe both for swimming and jumping in.
Yeah, and the other thing was on the raft. We've never formally put it in, but we've discussed it numerous times. I think we did bring it up there a couple meetings ago as well. We've talked about it at different points. I know Iroquois got some rafts and docks, and that water's quite shallow there as well, where everything is. So I would hope there'd be some way we could pull something like that off. Councilor McConnell, do you have a comment?
Yeah, Morseburg, I was walking down along their waterfront last summer, and they have a huge one that they haul out of the water every year, and that's right in the channel basically, because there's nothing out in front of there. What I was going to say though is if we're looking at a raft, the optimum place to put it, there's a big willow tree kind of on the corner of the beach area out there. That's the optimum place for the raft. So that's really where we should be talking about to see what the depth is out there. It would be attached right to the water or to the shore and be able to be pulled up in the winter. But to me, that's the place, because that's really the end of the beach area. You get out farther than that, then you're almost into the channel, really, where boats and people are paddling around, and you don't want people swimming out that far anyway. There was something else I was going to. Councillor Shankar mentioned the dive ramp, and one thing that I've been meaning to ask is we're into better weather. Can we have that dive ramp dropped into the water? I noticed this morning it was still up in the air. I can't think of any reason why we wouldn't have that in the water now for divers to access.
Mr. Armstrong?
Similar to that last year, we'll open the diaphragm at the same time that Brockville, Augusta, and Edwardsburg Cardinal opens theirs.
Which is?
As soon as we hear from the other 3 municipalities, we'll let you know.
Okay.
So before Victoria Day weekend, I'm guessing here, if not much before. Have we had any demand on it yet?
No.
Okay.
The only reason I mention is I see people at the foot of
Norwood Lane.
Exactly, yeah, which is just west of town.
Okay, well, if we could have an update on that as soon as the arrangements are made for that joint opening. And I was just going to mention, Councilor McConnell, when you're talking, you mentioned raft, and we're talking raft and dock. So I think when you were talking about you mentioned raft, I think you meant dock, don't you? Like around where the tree is.
Well, call it whatever you want. It's a floating something or other that is attached that you can walk out from the ground onto and jump off the end of. Presumably you could tie a kayak up to it if you wanted on one side, but it would be floating. So you could call it a floating dock, a floating raft, but it would be capable of being hauled out of there in the winter by our crew.
Yeah, I was actually, when I was referring to raft, I was referring to like the old raft that we had years ago that was out, and the support for that, it's still there, and it's at a location where in the summertime when it's still quite deep. It's almost 6 feet deep there. Once we get into the regular portion of the season, we could reutilize that as the anchoring spot for a raft there if we were willing to purchase one again. I mean, we had one here for a long time, and whatever reason the municipality didn't replace it back in the late 80s, early 90s. So I was thinking of that as well, which would be basically right where on the map, on the picture on 25, page 25, it would be pretty much would be located right where that the steps to the beach is, where that white line runs into the blue box. And that is still relatively deep there, but it's also just inside the dock. So just something to look at. I know we have discussed it a couple of times in the past, and I do know there are a lot of people that would love to see something like that again down there. So maybe if we're looking, the tweaks that we've talked about tonight, someone could take a look at that and try to include that into what's being discussed. And I don't know, there's also the buoy line as well. That goes beyond what we're discussing tonight. That's into pure operations, but there's that buoy line question as well that Coast Guard had hit us with in the past, how we would put that up. So I'm hoping that we can get some clarity on that in the next couple of weeks to a month. We've got a little time yet. These aren't massive things, but it's good to know you guys are on this. And this does look fantastic. I did want to add that. I think the retaining walls and everything, what's down there is starting to look pretty rough, and it is becoming a little dangerous as kids are clambering all over those paving stones. I've seen a couple pretty good falls in the last couple of years, and it's good that we get that out of there. And this will be a lot more amenable for everyone down there, and a lot more attractive too. So I think this is an excellent plan. But anything else? I guess the takeaway from this is just the dog access, which I think has been mentioned by a couple of people, and some of the tweaks, and just to get a feel for where we're going to be able to put the dock and/or raft coming back in the next couple of meetings. So everybody good for that? So direction forward there. Okay. So we'll move on to the Riverwalk Park. Oh, Councilor Burton, I'm sorry. Do you have another comment?
Thank you. Yes. If I had unmuted, I could have cut you off there for a minute. Thank you, Mayor Todd. I think there's a little bit of a concern about, in my opinion, about putting a raft there for people to jump out on, because we're talking about probably like 8 years old to 19-year-olds jumping off in a 6-foot area, because there might be a liability issue there if we were to put something like that out there. So because the landscape of the beach area has changed over the years, like Nathan said, it's quite sandy, and I've been there with my daycare kids over the years, and my 3-year-old, one of the 3-year-olds could walk out for miles and still be up to, the chest. So for me, that's a little bit of a concern, putting something to jump off of, but putting a dock there for kayaks or small motorized vehicles or boats or whatever out there, that would be more down the line that I was thinking. But it's something that we should definitely consider, the liability issue of kids being kids, right? So we have to consider that. So I said, thank you, Mayor Todd.
Absolutely. Thank you. Obviously a real concern. But one thing I will say though, kids are going to jump anyways. And that's one of the reasons why we're trying to make the changes to the fencing, because the last few years, kids have never seen this before. They've been climbing up in the Coast Guard fence there, getting up and doing backflips into the water and everything else. And it's a little shocking to see that. So maybe there's a safer alternative. People, the other thing we'd have to look into for the raft, or the dock, if we do that, kids are going to jump in off the end of it as well. So either way we do this, we're going to have to look at the liability for sure, but it's an excellent point. Iroquois though, and it sounds like Morrisburg as well, do it. And it's very shallow there. It's sandy as well. It's very weedy, but otherwise it's quite similar to ours, although it's probably a little more enclosed. It's more of a cove down there. But they definitely have a dock, and they have a raft and dock system that's in very shallow water as well. So I think we're actually deeper. In fact, I know we are for the one section, 'cause it's usually 2 to 3 feet in the kiddie section down in Iroquois. But anyways, excellent point, because we do have to be sure on the liability, and of course, working with the Coast Guard right next to all that. So look forward to bringing back, seeing the recommendations as they come back for this. So thanks very much for that. Any other final comments? Did I miss anyone else on Kelly's? Okay, I think we're good. So we've staff's clear on the direction there, so we're good. So back to Riverwalk Park and the new garden, shrubs, and so forth that are being proposed there. Nathan, please.
Excellent. Thank you, through you, Mayor Todd. So the Riverwalk Park Gardens, I think that was constructed a couple of years ago, and there are several trees and bushes and shrubs that were installed at that time of construction. And I think that the time has come to add a few more trees and shrubs to kind of give the park a little bit more dimension from the greenery aspect. So we had a series of that are shown in the attachment that's there in the report. There's a series of different trees and shrubs of different heights and sizes and colors, and that was to give it more volume, different colors throughout the year as well, and they would bloom at different times. As each tree was kind of chosen kind of based on blooming colors as well, and the timing of blooms. The budget for the trees and shrubs, we've got around $7,000. And we did have somebody from the public took their time to kind of go through and give us some recommendations on some of the trees that we did choose, and how we could maybe look at modifying some of the choices with some more native species of trees and shrubs. So that was great that somebody took the time to kind of go through that, and somebody with some knowledge of trees and shrubs, and also from the aspect of sustainability, trying to utilize native species more than species that aren't kind of native to the area. So when we looked at that, we did. There's a couple of them that I think we could probably change out from what we have chosen. I think that I think we have about 4 to 7 that we could potentially look at changing from some that were suggested within the letter, and with some that we have chosen, and they'd be very similar. So one of them would be the frost birch. That's a tree that I guess is not a native tree, but there's lots of different birches around that you could switch that out with that are just as nice, give you the same look. The other ones would be the Wagala. I don't know if I said that right, but it says it's apparently the one that we chose was native to China. And there's another one called the New Jersey tea that could be comparable and is a native plant as well. So there's several of those that I think we can switch out, and to make it more sustainable, something that's more has a more conservative approach from what we have chosen. But so it's nice to see that we did get some comments from the public regarding that, and we were hoping to. Once we have council approval, we would order the trees and look to get them in there probably in the May timeframe. So if there's any questions on those.
Thanks very much, Nathan. Yeah, I'll open it up for comments. And I did want to thank Melissa Palomar for her note today. She did suggest a number of native tree options as well. It's great to have that sort of local interest again on this. So we'll discuss these options tonight, and then I hope we'll actually, as you mentioned, we'll look at some native options as well. And maybe we can tweak this with an update coming back to council in a couple of weeks into the final selections. But I see Councillor Young had his hand up, and then Councillor Burton, please.
Thank you, Brad. Height is going to be an issue with some people. So choosing trees that will not overwhelm is going to be important. The root structure, I don't know how much soil we're going to find down there. So there are probably certain trees that have a better root structure for those conditions. Not that I know anything about gardening or trees, but those would be 2 comments I have. The third comment, when it comes back to council, just so that we don't cause any undue stress, can we make a presentation to the people people in Mariners Club, just so that they know what we're doing before we do it, so they don't panic and think we're going to plant a forest in front of the building. That would be my only comment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Mr. Armstrong, did you have a response?
Yeah, so is the intention to bring back another list to council for final selection? It seems to, I know what our next several meetings are going to look like, and they're pretty packed full, so.
Well, we just got that letter suggesting the native alternatives. And obviously there's a group of citizens that are concerned about this. So I think it's probably be beneficial for us to get some input on that through council. So we wind up coordinating something that works for the public and works, of course, for the reasons we're looking at down there as well. But we'll get there in a moment on just on the decision on direction. We'll just see what everybody thinks. Councillor Burton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I think it's important to note that we do need shade down there. These trees are not going to be overtaken by anybody's view. I think it's important to note that. I think that the Riverwalk Park is a place to be in the summer. You know, it has a beautiful view, beautiful play structure for families to coordinate there. And we're talking about beautifying a park right down at the river. And it gives an opportunity for having picnics underneath these beautiful trees that we will be planting, because we're planting them in a certain spot that it's going to overshadow some of the concrete that's there and some of the artifacts. So we can be putting some picnic tables or some benches in those areas. And I could see this park being, you know, a designation area for our tourists and for our residents. And you know, if the Mariners Club residents, they would probably enjoy it as well, because there is going to be extra shade down there, and we're looking at a shade, not a gazebo, but a shade structure of some sort as well. So it's great opportunities down there, and I think that park hasn't been utilized to its full potential. So this is going to definitely brighten the horizon for this park. So I think the tree selection that our staff have selected is a good selection, of bright different colors and different seasons. And I think utilizing some of the suggestions in the letter, like Nathan suggested, you could take out a couple of different trees and add in the trees. So I think maybe, you know, amendment to the recommendation tonight, I would suggest of that, and some of the tree selections. We can move forward on this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Jansen. Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you. Nathan, it's great. I too agree with you. That's great that the public wants, that they took the time and whatnot. And it's great that we're listening to them. It's their park, right? That's the whole point. Perhaps yet another resident contacted me and saying, you know, what was suggested on social media was a couple of them were not appropriate because they were invasive and whatnot. Unlike Councillor Young, I know nothing about gardening, but I was wondering if, like, I know the report included an attachment from nursery out in Trenton, I believe. Perhaps we could take the suggestion of Melissa's and contact a local nursery and see, help with that to bring it to council again, and to Matthew's point, make it a shorter discussion if it's a second opinion, especially from a local nursery. Just my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jansman. Nathan, do you have a response?
Yes, yeah, through you, Mayor Todd. One thing I probably didn't elaborate enough on was, so I'm not a horticulturist by any means either. So the choices and the locations that were chosen on the map that we have tonight, it was through one of the staff in the operations group who has a horticultural background, and he chose the trees in consultation with I believe Donna White at Greener Things. So she's been very helpful with a lot of the different things. So she's got lots of experience with this type of layout and deciding which trees. So I'm sure that they'll be more than amenable to looking at the list that's here and the suggestions that were made, and maybe doing modifications to what would work best.
I had Councillor Ostrander next.
Just briefly, Your Worship, we're well ahead of the curve this spring compared to others. We just put in 2 or 3 very wet springs, and we're having this conversation easily a month ahead, and hopefully that's going to enhance the fact that some of these things can be in and up and going long before the other springs. We could even get the conversation solidified, sort of. So kudos to Nathan for getting us to this point. I think the conversation's well lined up here to get some good stuff done here for the looks of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostrander. Other comments, questions? I think I'll try to summarize this. Let me know if I've got this right or wrong, but it sounds like there's a general consensus that we could bring this back in a couple weeks with an adjusted list. Mike, you did mention the time. Councillor Jansman, you made the comment as well. I don't think we lose anything by waiting 2 weeks. We only got this letter. I mean, I think it was sent out today at around 4 o'clock, and I think there's some potentially some good input there. But I don't know this stuff either, so I only can hear what people are advising. It's not to say I don't believe in what Mr. Burton is or Phil Burton, not any relation to Leanne, but Phil is recommending here as our horticultural son staff, because he's never steered us wrong, of course. But there's a pretty extensive note from Ms. Palomar, and I just like to, I think it wouldn't hurt us to take a good look at that and consider what she's put on the table there, because she did take the time to do it, and it's nice to have that sort of community involvement. As I forget who said this now, it's a community's park. It's not ours. So I think it'd be good to take that into consideration if it takes us another update in another meeting. Councilor Burton.
Thank you. I think it's important to, in my opinion, move forward tonight. Staff has taken several hours of their time to go through the different trees, and Phil Burton, like you said, Mayor Todd, no relation to me. He is our horticultural expert professional on staff, and Nathan did suggest that he was going to, consult Phil with the letter that we received tonight, with a couple of different changes. And I think it's important to continue this motion tonight and move forward and just amend the motion. So I would propose that we would amend the motion tonight and just add a couple different trees that was suggested from the letter that we received at later on this evening at 4 o'clock. So I'd like to make that motion if possible, please.
Certainly, but I will say, I can say right now, I won't be voting in favor of it, because we don't have the information. We've gotten a letter at 4 o'clock today that I had about 30 seconds to review before the meeting tonight, and we're basically asked to do what exactly? I'm not sure, but a motion for an amendment. What would the wording be, Councilor Burton?
Oh, that we would, under Nathan suggested, Nathan, if I could ask you to repeat that, you would suggest that you would take out a couple of trees and amend that. If you could comment on that, it'd be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So again, through Mayor Todd, yeah, we received this just today, and I haven't completely taken this back to Phil Burton to review with
Mhm.
the flyer of the trees, but certainly happy to do that. And I think quick look through it, and there's probably 4 or 5 I think we could switch out, and I don't think it would make that much of a difference either to how it would look, or it wouldn't be negative to anything that we've planned so far.
So just taking out 4 or 5 and amending the trees that we have there, that we can move forward on that. And I know that because of COVID, and I'm sure that council is aware of this as well, everything is backed up. So if we say we're going to be 2 weeks, it's going to be another 2 weeks for landscaping items. And I know this for a fact because I just had a guy here today asking for landscape, and he's like, it's going to be the end of May, early June before you can do this. So the more we talk about it and back it up, the more it's going to be. So I would like to move forward and make that motion that we just give staff direction to amend a couple of the tree items in corresponding with the letter.
What are the 4 or 5? How are we amending this? What are we swapping? We need to know that before we put that into a motion. Otherwise, I don't know what we're voting on. Do you have the 4 or 5 suggested to change? Mr. Armstrong, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so we could simply amend the original motion to take into consideration the information received today in coordination with our horticulturists on staff, as well as our vendor, who obviously are also experts on this. And just, getting into picking the exact species and whatnot might be a little bit beyond where we were hoping to go in terms of this report. But
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that either, but when we've got a group of citizens that are asking for specific items, and if it does go back and staff decides that the swaps don't work, I know where this is going to come back to. It's not going to come back to staff. It's just going to come back to council. So please take that into consideration. Mr. Richard, did you have a comment? And I see Councillor Shankar had his hand up a moment ago.
No, I'm good. I think that we're more than happy to work with some of these suggestions that are here, and come back. We could come back. Yeah, I think Councillor Burton made a good point that supply. Many people, as they're living at home and working at home, they're very have a high interest in their gardens and their things around their house. So yeah, I think the horticultural business is kind of booming this year. So I'm not 100% sure if timelines will get backed up or not, but that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, we're willing to work with what information we do have.
And just the one procedural thing, just before I go to Gory, says the recommendation is actually for all of the improvements. So if we amend that now, like Ms. Velkamp, how do we handle this procedurally? Do we have to split this up?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, I'm just thinking with Councillor Burton's motion to amend, we don't have a seconder yet, so technically that's not on the table. It's only the original motion. So if we're not dealing with Councillor Burton's amendment because we don't have a seconder, we could amend that main motion to just remove the Riverwalk Park aspect and approve the other two. We haven't discussed Waterfront Trail yet, but that's an option as well.
Yeah, that's yet another reason why I kind of wanted to move this for 2 weeks, because this is going to get a little more complicated just in the motions. I had Councillor Shankar, then Councillor McConnell, then Councillor Young, please. Sorry, Councillor.
So
I'm not avoiding the motion and asking for a seconder. I'm just trying to determine where we do this because it's actually 3 separate items. Gory, please.
So with respect to the park there, I just flipped over to read the email because I hadn't read it yet. It is quite in depth, and I would really like to know I mean, our resident expert is Phil Burton, what he thinks of that letter. So I think getting a letter in at 4 o'clock on a meeting that's held at 6 o'clock, or we received it at 5 o'clock, it's kind of hard to to adapt to that. But you know, I think it's probably good, wise to have our horticulturist look at that and see if he agrees or disagrees. Like, I'll be honest, I hardly know what I think I put the wrong cedar hedges in my place. And I looked at them, wondered why they wouldn't grow for the longest time, and realized I bought the wrong cedar hedges. But so this is not my field. I'm happy to defer it for 2 weeks and get the proper education on it from the experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shanker. I had Councillor McConnell and Councillor Young. I forget which order. Lee, do you want to go?
Yeah, Ray first.
Okay, Councillor Young then.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the motion that we were first discussing. It just says direct staff to implement the improvements and move forward. That's all we need. I agree that we should look at the other alternatives to the proposed shrubs and trees, but we can do that in a timely fashion and get this underway before planting season.
Thanks very much, Councillor Young. Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I'm going to presume that Phil has already, if he's suggested that we put these particular bushes and trees in, then he's looked into it and they are available. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have suggested we go with them. I'm all for local, or not necessarily local, but domestic varieties of trees. They're liable to be hardier, they're liable to last better in our environment. And I'm very appreciative of the lady that emailed us with the alternatives. I think those alternatives should be examined, but we don't know, since we haven't looked into them, what their availability is. So if they're available, great, swap them out. If they're not available, then we'll have to look at something else. But we want to get it done sooner rather than later. I don't think there's any point in rushing through with this week, though. I'd like to see a little more information on the other trees, if they're available, and go from there. I think we should split this into 3 if it's not already split. Proceed with Kelly's Beach, and proceed with the next one that we're going to go to, and have this one brought back for a final decision in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Anyone else want to weigh in on this one? Kind of fun. It's a good discussion though, because it keeps us on our toes with this as well, and what we're choosing down there. So it does sound like there's a fairly good consensus for the final decision in 2 weeks. It just gives us a little more time. I think Ray is right though. I think the motion does work as stated, implementing the improvements. We've already given some direction back to staff on the Kelly's Beach portion of this with some tweaks that staff have taken under advisement. And I think we can just do the same here if that's okay. Councillor Burton, are you okay with that? I think we're all speaking, basically, we're using slightly different language, but we're all speaking towards the same thing. We all want to incorporate the public input, and also, of course, respect Phil, who's done a great job for many years as our horticulturalist on staff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Todd. I think you're right. I think everybody is on the same page, and I think it's important to recognize Phil Burton for all of his efforts and his expertise, and take into consideration this letter that we received late today. So I would consider leaving the motion as it is tonight, because it does say, to direct staff to implement the improvements. And I think after Phil reviews the letter, maybe he could make a couple different suggestions and then everybody's on the same page. So, I mean, everybody wants the best for Riverwalk Park. So in the end,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So are we good with that for Riverwalk Park then, that we'll get a report back from council? I mean, we don't know if the other items on Kelly's will be available in a couple of weeks, but we will get something back on Riverwalk in 2 weeks. It can be just a quick update on where we are with that, with the selections. Is everyone okay with that? Staff clear on that, that's what implement means here to bring it back? Okay, so we can move on to the Heritage River Trail then. And Nathan, please.
Wonderful. Thank you. So yes, through you, Mayor Todd, the third item on the list on this council report is the Heritage River Trail. It was noted several times by Councilor McConnell, who frequents this path probably almost daily, but there's a section that is not in good shape. And so I walked it with one of the staff probably a couple of weeks ago, and we saw the section that is in pretty rough shape, and it seems like they keep repairing it, and it keeps sinking. So what we thought we could recommend doing is take out that section of asphalt this year, and then I believe that we'll have to discuss this with Parks Canada because it's their property, but also take out maybe 1 to 2 feet of material beneath the path, because I think potentially what's happening is that it's all built on material that just is never really was compacted properly. So if we take a little bit out and put some new material in and compact it down a little better, and then we're thinking is that if we put gravel in there and then a layer of stone dust or even Portland cement on that section for the summer, and then give it a chance to kind of let the water seep in, compact it a little bit more, and see what it looks like this time next year, to see if it's sunken anymore in certain areas, instead of just paving it over again this summer and then having being in the same situation that we are right now. So that's kind of the recommendation of the budget would be that we'd spend about $4,000 this year, and then next year, if if it was satisfactory that it wasn't sinking anymore, then we would pave it for $6,000, maybe this time or before summer of next year. And that's that's sort of the overall recommendation that we're thinking on that path.
Thank you very much, Nathan. So open it up for comments, questions from members of council. Councilor McConnell, please. And Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I agree completely with Nathan's assessment of that section. I think we all know where it is. It's farther down towards the foot of Boundary Street if you're looking north, and it's just been deteriorating over the years. What he hasn't mentioned, though, is the section that where the Millennium Path joins the actual marina on the east end. Staff is proposing to put a drain in there to take some of the water away. I think it needs something more than that, though, because about a month ago, that was underwater and ice right from the marina to, I would say, about 75 to 100 feet east of the pavilion there. I think that comes down on a slant towards the marina and then comes in on a curve. And I think if that was adjusted there and paved so that pathway came straight down to the marina without the curve, then you would have the water running down there because of the slope, and it would run right into the marina. So I think that would drain naturally there. You could also curve it into the pathway at the east end of the marina there, but I think draining that straight down into the marina would be another way to drain that and drain it naturally. It would work very similar to the south end of St. Lawrence Street that drains right down to the drain at the south end of the street there, where they're talking about putting the actual sewer or drain in is far enough up that I don't believe it's going to catch all the water and the ice that accumulates there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McConnell. Nathan, comment on that, or just something you want to look into more?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comments there. Yeah, I think when we did look at it, it looked like a low spot just naturally sort of was right on top of where the storm sewer is sitting. But we can certainly look at to see if it made sense to continue to try and push that further into the past that west into where the marina is. I think the hesitation there was that I was trying to get the water to kind of come to a natural low spot, and it just happened to be above that storm sewer, and get rid of it there instead of having it continue to go to the west and then potentially ice up the path, because operations staff have concerns and have had I think even safety incidents right there where they go down with the trackless and it's iced up right there, like you're saying, past where the storm sewer comes down, and have kind of slid a little bit and slid more than they would have comfortably wanted to slide in the trackless. And I was trying to look at ways to get rid of that water before it actually continued to go that westward from there. Overall, I think that you're right. That was very iced up about a month and a half ago, and it was quite treacherous. So we want to make sure that we're doing something there to improve that situation so it doesn't do that.
Thank you very much, Nathan. I think I had Councillor Young next.
Thank you, Brett. All I wanted to do was point out that all of these items were discussed in the budget, and the proposals this evening are coming within budget. So it sounds like we're doing a lot, but it's all covered in the budget. Thank you.
Excellent point, Ray, for those who know we're spending their money if they're watching tonight. Any further comments on the Heritage River Trail proposals tonight? Just have one quick one myself, and it's actually, if this is coming at a later report, although we did approve this already as well, is just the parking area down there. It's long been an issue, and again, it's the way the drainage comes down, the gravel washes away, and we wind up with pretty significant potholes and an issue when we drive in down there. And of course, we agreed to combine those two parking lots this summer and do some work down there. So I just did want to note again how much that has deteriorated in the last little while, and that is happening all the time. So I don't know if it's a drainage solution, if it's a pavement solution because of the way the crushed stone just washes away constantly there, or what. But I just did want to note that, and I don't know if that's coming back at some point. But if we could get something on that at some time, just to let us know that that's happening. And the other issue, of course, on the parking that I did mention internally was if we do combine those two lots, I am concerned that there are two lots there for two purposes now. One is for people that walk the heritage pathway, and the other is connected to the harbor. We connect those, I think we're going to have the harbor traffic overwhelm the parking on the other end. So just wanted to note that because it's not included in the section on the Heritage River Trail tonight, but that is a vital component of the trail because that's the parking for people that go down there to enjoy that whole area. So just for your consideration on that one, please. Any further comments on the report overall? Nathan, Matthew, did you want to mention anything else? No changes from the budget implications, of course, so we're all good there. And the environmental, of course, is listed as well. So anything further from staff tonight?
Yeah, so ideally we would utilize the internal staff as much as possible for these projects, and schedule them over the next couple months and get them done.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks so much for bringing it forward tonight. So we'll return to the motion and just note, of course, Kelly's Beach, we asked for a little more clarity on a couple of items there. Riverwalk Park Gardens, of course, not to revisit the great tree and shrub debate, but we asked for a little more information there coming back. And Heritage River Trail pretty much speaks for itself, but because that is such an important area, if we could get an update back there at some point as the construction is beginning and so forth, how that's being implemented. I'd like to hear a little more about the parking lot, I know as well. And I know there's a bit of a concern there because that's a very heavily utilized place for people parking for lunch and for going for walks. So with that, I'll return to the recommendation. And for the life of me, I can't remember who moved it and seconded it now. Who did we, Ms. Velkamp, you've got the mover and the seconder on that?
Just trying to go back in my notes too to see who it was. I believe it's Ostrander and Young.
Okay. So gentlemen, you're still good with that after all the discussion and the staff direction. So I see some nods, so I guess we're good to proceed with the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. And now we're on to 12.3, and this is a staff report 34/2021, Dibble Street East Road Reconstruction Project tender results. Very long recommendation, but I'll read it as follows. It's recommended that council approve the selection of Ken Miller Excavating Limited for major road reconstruction of Dibble Street East from Boundary Street to Van Connet Street in 2021 with an estimated construction budget of $1,560,694 for phase 1, and that council approve the selection of Ken Miller Excavating Limited for major road reconstruction on Dibble Street East from Van Connet Street to Edward Street with an estimated construction budget of $1,048,344 for phase 2, and that council provide staff direction to enter into a construction contract with Ken Miller Excavating Limited for the major road reconstruction on Dibble Street East from Boundary Street to Edward Street with an estimated construction budget of $2,609,038 for the complete road project, including phases 1 and 2. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Young, seconded by Councilor Burton. So over to you, Nathan. Some good news, but we've got to make a decision tonight as well, how we proceed, I guess, with phase 2.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Yeah, so we have here's the accumulation of a whole bunch of things that have happened over the last little while to determine which road to reconstruct next. So there's a report that came to council and details of how Dibble Street East came kind of to the priority of the list of roads to look at. The reason, some of the reasons again that Dibble Street East was chosen is that some of the storm sewers connected to the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer are connected, and that what happens there is that you reduce your capacity at your water treatment plant, which is with rainwater, which is never a great thing. So we want to alleviate the surge pressures and the flows that go to the wastewater treatment plant by separating some of the networks that are underneath the road. The other thing is that the pavement condition as well is in very rough shape for a lot of that street. And so these two things kind of made it a top priority to get done this year. So EVB is the engineering firm, and they have recommended that we would start the first phase from Boundary to Van Connet, and then the second phase was Van Connet to Edward Street. So the phases include, full reconstruction of the whole roads, everything underneath the roads and the surface of the road. I won't get into the details because we probably have gone into that several times. One of the items that did come up in the last discussion was the sidewalks, and whether there would be one sidewalk or two sidewalks or no sidewalks. But I'm not sure if no sidewalks came up into the conversation, but it's kind of interesting as I kind of delved into it a little bit more. But I think what we'll do here is just from a technical point of view, Josh Eamon from EVB is here to kind of discuss the technical side of why the road is designed the way that it is in this situation.
Yes, thanks, Nathan. So we completed the design. I think we kind of talked about this last time that we met, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I should start off by thanking you. Thanks again for having me here with the meeting. We talked about this a little bit last time, but we completed at staff's request, we completed the design for the entire road network from Edward Street all the way to East Street, to Boundary. We completed the design for the entire project with hopes that, with Matthew's foresight, that he was hoping that we were going to get some better pricing than what we were budgeting for. So we put it out, and we did make it provisional so that we can stop it based on whatever budgets permit. When we had, so that at the time, and this was actually prior to when we had our meeting with council previously, we discussed at that time and we reviewed what our design criteria was, and at the time, decision between staff and council was to evaluate and proceed with the design with one sidewalk. And that was just because we were looking at trying to create a cross section that would fit within the the road property lines, and then as well coordinate with the existing utility poles and existing infrastructure that's there. And we kind of came up with a bunch of different options, and the preferred solution was to go with one sidewalk, as we kind of discussed previously. So we sort of deferred the decision, but because it wasn't really impacting phase one, but we're now in a position where our pricing was so advantageous that we're now looking at completing the entire phase 1 and 2. So I guess just again, we've talked about this previously, and I didn't have a presentation that I can pull in front of you, but we felt that one sidewalk fit best within the existing road cross section and the existing property lines. It worked best with the utility poles, and based on staff feedback from Nathan and Matthew and members of Public Works, we thought, based on the amount of foot traffic and stuff we were seeing, that the one sidewalk would provide the level of service that we thought was required for the new road construction. And the advantage is that we're able to move the road in a position to avoid the utility poles and increase the amount of green space and vegetated strips and such that we're putting back into the road cross section. So that's how the design was completed. And again, this was done prior to our last council meeting, and it was how the tender's been closed in now, how we're recommending for award of the project. So I don't know, Nathan, was that what you're kind of looking for in terms of the?
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you, Josh. So yeah, from a technical point of view, they were certainly advising that the one sidewalk was an optimal design. And so I did a bit of research as well, and one of the things that we've talked about as well for winter maintenance was accessibility. And I found I guess it was a news report, but it had councillors and several people from the public and petitions in London, Ontario, just this March, where London is reconstructing, I think, 8 local roads, and the design is such that there's going to be either 1 or 2 sidewalks in the cross section of the roads, and they have several people have signed petitions that have people that have accessibility issues. They say that sidewalks are creating more barriers for them than less. To the point where they're saying that sidewalks can be uneven, built to slope, icy, inaccessible in the winter, and they don't provide accessibility for people with mobility challenges. So it's kind of a little bit counterintuitive from what you would think, but as you think it through, it does. It's just another thing, right? That's in the place that needs to be maintained and just creates a barrier. And if you think of walking down a street on sidewalk, you have these undulations as well, where the driveways are. It just creates more dips and valleys that can create issues for people with accessibility issues. So and then the other things that we will be having a public information session with EVB as well to go through the project and the timelines, so that people, the public, know that the project's coming and the different details about it. And then there's several items that need to be circulated to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation of Parks and Natural Gas, and all the utilities, which I think EVB has done already, much of that. So the great thing is that this request for proposal or request for tender got out early, thanks to the efforts by EVB Engineering and the approvals from Mayor and Council early this year. We had a lot of interest in the project as far as civil contractors go, and there were 6 bids put forth by March 24th. And as Josh was saying, the pricing was very good. It's street from Boundary to Edward, and then again 5 more in the range. It ranged right up to 4.7 million. So it was a big range, but again 3 of them were very competitive. So Ken Miller was the lowest, and that's who we're looking for council to approve this evening for staff to move forward with the contract. Again, the project will be phased. We'll go from Boundary to Van Conant this year, and then that will be completed by the end of October. And then phase 2 would be Van Conant to Edward. And then I believe that Miller would like to start that in April 2022 and complete that by the end of September 2022. So overall, some of the financial details. So the total project cost is 2.946 million. And that's 691 meters of road that will be reconstructed. And the funding for the capital project comes through the water and wastewater reserves and the federal gas tax funding. So phase one will be 1.76 million through the federal gas tax and 750,000. Sorry, the total is 1.76 million, with the federal gas tax was 750,000 and the water and wastewater reserves was 1.01 million. And then phase two was 1.18 million. And the split was 500,000 from federal gas and wastewater was 683,000. Other items of note, all efforts will be made to reuse soils that are clean within this project, to go to other properties that are in need of fill within town properties, such as on Development Drive. We'll also look to use any of the sidewalk panels appropriately as we can in other areas, either maybe as fill on other properties, just to reduce the amount of trucking and greenhouse gases that are emitted during the project. And then also the bedrock that's removed, we potentially could be using that for fill on low lands like up on Development Drive, or we could use it as shoreline fill for some of the shoreline work that needs to be done. So overall, we're looking to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions where we can, by reducing the trips for the dump trucks. And that's and again, attachment A had a cross section of the typical road cross detail, and then the other attachment has all the bids that came in and some details, the detailed memo from UVB Engineering. That was everything.
Okay, thanks very much, Nathan. So I guess long story short, we're going to do phase one this year, as we'd already projected. Phase two is going to be bumped up a year. And this also enables us, I think, doesn't this mean that we'll be able to probably move up East Street as well? Was that not the...
No, so we would still need the time to allow the reserves to build back up for East Street.
So I thought East Street was 2023.
So with these two projects, it would be 2024.
Okay. So still good news, even though I had us a year early on East Street. That's still excellent news for us on Dibble overall. The only question is, of course, that there is a sidewalk change there, as we did discuss before, and this obviously extends that single sidewalk. I had Councillor Young up first, please.
Thank you. John, we're going to face the same amount of rock as we did on Henry Street, or is this better digging?
That's a good question here. Let me see. There is quite a bit of rock. I don't know if we necessarily will be quite as bad as we were in Henry Street, but unfortunately, there is a number of locations where we're going to be in bedrock as well.
Okay. Absolutely no opportunity to do this all in 1 year from start to finish?
Well, how we'd set it up. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, was that Nathan? Would you want to speak to that, or did you want me to?
No, go ahead, Josh. You've been in contact with Miller and have
Yeah.
the details. Yeah.
Okay. No, yeah, my apologies. So how we'd set it up was that we were providing the contractor with the ability to do it all in 1 year or in two. So we gave them some flexibility, and the idea was, and again, we've kind of strategized with staff on this, and the idea was to try to get as competitive of a bid as possible. And I think it paid off. When I spoke with Ken Miller Excavation, their intent was to try to get as much done as they can this year, but they obviously were pretty uncomfortable with the idea of committing to doing more than phase one. Just they didn't want to get themselves in a pickle where they committed and weren't able to actually do it if things didn't go as smoothly as planned. But I think based in speaking with them, if things go smoothly, I think you may see it go beyond phase one. And the contract is set up such that they have that capability. Like, we've kind of given them some flexibility in their schedule. So they do have the capability of going beyond the phase one spot this year. And if it goes into phase two, again, that's contractually permitted. They have to carry their rates from this year. So we're locking in their pricing.
Okay. Thank you. We can afford it if they can get it done this year, we can pay for it, but it would save the neighborhood from putting up with massive construction for 2 summers in a row.
Yeah, I don't think based in speaking with Braden from Ken Miller Excavation, I don't think it's reasonable to expect, no matter what, no matter how good things go, I don't think we would ever see the entire project done this year. So I think even in the most optimum conditions, I think there's still going to be some interruptions next year, but they're going to start from one end and work their way to the other, I presume, or at least maybe have 2 crews. So it's not like you're going to have someone in front of your house for, 2 years in a row or anything like that,
Yeah, I'm just thinking of parking and garbage pickup and all of those other
All
things
the-
that no,
The joys
little
of
things.
construction, you mean? All the joys of construction, yeah.
Yes, yeah, dirty
Yeah.
windows and yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that short-term pain for long-term gain. We had that on St. Lawrence and
Yeah.
had it again, but it's there is long-term gain. Mr. Armstrong, you had a comment?
From a financial perspective, I would not recommend that we would push for the whole project to be done this year. It would put too much of a drain on our reserves, and we require the federal gas tax money from next year to apply against the project, which you can't pre-spend.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yes, okay. I was thinking the total capital project was 2.8 in the budget, not Devil Street. That's right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Other comments? Obviously the only real change here is that thing with the sidewalks, which has some good reasons behind it now. It's nice to see some more rationale there put in the report. Councillor McConnell and then Councillor Shankar.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. A question for Matthew. I was under the impression that we saved up 2 years of gas tax and then did a street. Now, we had a problem with Henry Street because of the emergency situation there, but I thought that was our program going forward. We would save up 2 years and then do a street. Is that not the way we were doing it?
That is correct.
This kind of flies in the face of that.
So the reason why we're able to do it year over year is that the federal government announced a one-time influx of federal gas tax of a doubling for 2021. So in essence, we're able to get 2 years worth of that gas tax in 21 and 2022 to put towards this project. If that wasn't there, then we really would be stretching our reserves a lot more to try to complete it in 2022.
Okay, thank you. The other thing, I'm disappointed, quite frankly, that this tender was let and designed with one sidewalk all the way through when that decision had not been made. I know we discussed it. We decided not to go with 2 sidewalks east of the fort, but I don't believe that decision was ever discussed going west of the fort. I toured that area today, and at East Street, Devil Street East and Devil Street from west of East Street, they don't really line up all that great. It comes off at an angle, so it's not a real great corner there. So I am disappointed that we didn't have the discussion on the sidewalks, because I think that is a council decision, not a staff decision, nor an engineering decision. The thing that bothers me about this too is Dibble Street from East Street down to Boundary is a good wide street, and with what has been planned here, that will continue. But Dibble Street from East Street to Edward Street is a different story entirely. It's narrower, and it has the hydro poles actually, as is mentioned here, in the street on the outside of the sidewalk. And if I'm understanding how this is planned, then there's going to be a curb poured on the outside of those existing poles, and the street will end at the poles. Given the fact that the sidewalk is on the inside of the poles, we are narrowing that street in. It is 1 block of poles that are on the outside of the sidewalk. And given the fact that we are looking at $2.6 million for this entire project, I think we should have looked to see, first of all, what kind of shape those poles were in. And I know that they're there. I didn't really take notice of what shape they're in, but I would like to have seen what the cost was in putting them on the inside of the existing sidewalk and widening the road out to that with the curb. So you're actually adding to the width of a narrow street, not taking away from it. Because as I understand, the sidewalk on the north side is going to be wider than it is now, which is going to narrow the road even more.
Did you want me to speak to that, to Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, sure, Josh, if you'd care.
Sure. Yes, Councilor McConnell, you're correct in your explanation. What the new cross section of what we're proposing is that the backup curb will essentially be touching or very close to touching the utility poles. Obviously, we're going to make the road straight. We're going to improve the alignment of the road. You're also correct that the intersection at East Street is not ideal at all by a traffic perspective. I mean, it is offset and not something that we would do if we had a clean slate and we didn't have existing road allowances and buildings and homes to work around. We would align that intersection, but we didn't see it as something that we thought, obviously the solution would be requiring purchasing of homes and stuff. So we didn't really think that warranted, the cost didn't warrant the correction, let's put it that way. In terms of the cross section, we're going with the standard 8 meter wide right away, an 8 meter wide asphalt surface, which is the same width that we've done for Henry as well as St. Lawrence Street. So we're trying to standardize, and again, this is through talking with staff, but we're trying to standardize on a typical cross section that all of your streets are going to be working towards. So we have a standard urban cross section that's applied throughout. And then in terms of your question on the utility poles, we did reach out and speak with the utility company and Rita St. Lawrence. I was having a bit of a moment there, but yeah, Rita St. Lawrence, we did speak with them, and that they didn't identify that the poles needed to be replaced, and therefore it wasn't included in our budget. Now, again, sometimes surprises happen, and if that comes out during construction, we will deal with it then. But we did pre-consult with them during construction, and it wasn't identified as being replaced. So we coordinated the new road to work with around the existing utility poles. And sorry, just last thing I will say is that you're right as well. Like the sidewalks, I think we mentioned this in our last presentation to council. The existing sidewalks do not meet the required width for the Ontario Accessibility Act. So the new standard, we're making the sidewalk wider on the north side of the road.
Thanks very much, Josh. Any follow-up, Councilor McConnell?
Only that I think we should pursue the hydro poles. I would like to know. I think we should see what it would cost to remove them. It seems a shame that we have one block on that whole stretch that has hydro poles where they are. And as the gentleman mentioned, that is not the greatest corner where Dibble and East join. If we actually make the road narrower there on the south side, which is really what we're going to do, that makes that corner even farther. If we were taking out the north sidewalk, or if the poles weren't there and we were moving the road over farther, the intersection would line up better. But I don't know. The hydro poles bother me on that stretch.
Yeah, I don't know if I understand your point with regards to moving the road. So essentially, we are actually, the asphalt platform is moving a little bit further south, right? So, or thereabouts. I'd have to take a look at each individual location because it's a little bit all over there. But essentially, the utility pole will become the back of the curb. So the curb will be poured right up along the back of that curb will be almost touching or very close to touching the utility pole, and then the road asphalt would move north from there, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's not moving the road south, that's moving the road north, because the road north, the south side of the road right now is right up against the sidewalk, which is on the south side of the hydro poles.
Right.
They're moving the road to the north side of the hydro poles.
Right. Yeah, understand your point. Yes, we're getting the asphalt. I guess, yeah, you're right. Like the asphalt, the edge of asphalt right now is approximately the curb or the utility pole, I should say, or very close to it. And so that curb width now will be a half a meter up to the north. Like the curb will push the asphalt to the north by half a meter.
At the very least, if you could remove the closest pole to East Street inside of the sidewalk, then you'd be able to get a better alignment on that corner by moving the road south in that section, a couple feet or so.
Yeah, we can take a look at that for sure. Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that.
Any other comments?
Just,
Nathan?
yeah, if I could, Mayor Todd, just one other thing, or I guess two other things I want to kind of mention. The other thing with road cross sections that there's, like I said, it's probably increasing. Well, I know there's lots of people walking now, but you'll have a fully accessible, properly built sidewalk on one side, and then and it does. I'm not sure if you guys, if you're getting much information from the public that say that they prefer a road without a sidewalk, but that was really interesting to see that it had that much gravity in a London, Ontario, which is probably similar type residential areas that would be being reconstructed. And then the other things that you do have people that are driving different types of things these days, as far as being on the road with scooters and different type of mobility devices that typically wouldn't be on the sidewalk. The other kind of point that I wanted to mention is that kind of by getting this project kind of out on the street as quick as it did get out, probably I think the budget that EVB had the Class A budget estimate that they had was 3.25 million, and because we're out early, and I think the contractors were really keen to get bids in. We had several bids that came in at 2.6, 2.96. So I think getting out early saved the town a fair amount of money by being aggressive and getting it out and getting people to bid on it. So that was a positive, I guess, to kind of moving it forward sooner than later.
Thanks, Nathan. Any other comments from members of council? Councilor Shankar?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just a quick question. When we had our budget, Matthew, we budgeted $2 million for Dibble Street. Is that correct?
To do phase one, that's correct.
To do phase one. So this is coming in under budget?
That's correct.
So did we budget for phase two?
We did not. So what we did is we added a provisional amount. And I think we talked about this in our meeting to say, what is the cost if they're able to complete the whole length? And then with the fact that we're under budget on this one, we received an extra $250,000 in federal gas tax, and it would be done over 2 years. Then I believe we can afford to do the entire length over that 2 years by the end of 2022. So it was just a provisional amount, and if council so chooses that they don't want to move forward with phase two, then that's certainly an option as well.
Okay, thank you. I was just a little confused there about everything. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Shankar. Councilor Burton, please.
Whoop. Thank you, Mayor Todd. Took off my video by accident. Matthew, if I may, so our budget is 2 million to do Dibble, and referring to Henry Street. Did we have any hiccups? Because I don't have that information in front of me. Did we have any hiccups in Henry Street that we went over budget just slightly?
That is correct. We had budgeted about 750,000 to do Henry Street, and it cost a little over 800,000. That was mostly due to the fact that it was an emergency situation, so no geotechnical studies were done. The geotechnical was done in this case and for the entire length of Dibble Street East, and so that's how we're able to make a slightly better judgment. Also, the infrastructure was replaced on Henry Street was approximately done around the turn of the in the 1900s, either in the late 1800s or early 1900s, whereas the majority of this area has been done in the course of the 1900s. So we expect it to be not quite as badly installed as it was done in the late 1800s. But we're still going to run into rock, but we did the geotechnical studies to be able to make an estimation, a better estimation than we had on East Street.
Thank you. Follow up, Mayor Todd, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. I think it's important to note that there might be some hiccups in this project, hopefully not, but we need to plan and estimate for those little bit of hiccups before we move on to phase 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Don't
Councilor.
worry about it.
Mr. Armstrong, comment? Thought I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Todd. Through you, I just wanted to point out to Councillor Burton that that the numbers that we have in front of you do include a contingency allowance. I think of about 125,000 or thereabouts. So, like as Matthew pointed out, we were really going in blind for Henry Street. We had no boreholes at all. Where here we have boreholes very well spaced out. So we kind of, I mean, rock does bounce up and down, so you can only poke holes in the ground and kind of take an estimation between. But we do have some pretty good data to work from. And then, like I said, we also have a pretty healthy contingency allowance. So we do expect that we've budgeted for some unknown conditions that may come up during construction.
Thanks very much, Josh. And Matt, I'm assuming you didn't actually have your hand up there. That was
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing.
Okay. Any further comments tonight? I just want to follow up on the one comment made by Councilor McConnell, because he's absolutely correct, and I just want to get some clarity on this with the sidewalks, because that is a dramatic change for residents in town, and quite frankly, I don't know how they're going to how people are going to respond to this. There's some good reasons for doing so. The accessibility. I mean, we've had that concern in the past, and people don't walk on the sidewalks in the winter, and with good reason for that, for the most part, because they can be a little more slippery, and the corners can be a little challenging for people with accessibility issues, and also just for people walking. So I'm not absolutely against the sidewalk thing, but I honestly don't know what people in town the response is to this, because you can say as much as you want. London's doing it, and that's great for London, but we're not London. And I wasn't. We're at the point now, if we don't want the sidewalks, and I'm not suggesting where I am on that, but if we don't want the sidewalks, I'm assuming we have to basically turn down phase 2 and either retender this or just put it off for the foreseeable future. We can't at this point go back and say, hey, we'd like to add the sidewalks on the south side back into the contract and get a price on that. I'm assuming we can't do that without basically redoing the RFP process. That's a question.
Yeah.
Josh, did you want to weigh in on that, or did you want me to?
Go ahead.
Josh, I think you're muted.
I love Zoom meetings. I really do. No, through you, Mr. Murray, I just wanted to say that it is actually a unit rate contract. So we actually do have the capabilities through the contract to add that sidewalk if need be from a contractual perspective. So I definitely wouldn't say that it would require us to retender it for sure. However, it would require quite a bit of redesign work. Based on how the contractor is proposing to do the work, we could definitely make it happen and still hold the contractor to those prices for sure. But there would be quite a bit of redesign work for us to do it. And I'm not sure how it would work out. And without having to sit down and actually, go through the design with our team again, I can't really comment on that. But I do know it was, even with the one sidewalk, we had a challenge to get a lot of the things to fit. So I do think there might be some challenges there, but contractually speaking, we have the rights and flexibility to do that if need be.
Thank you. That's some added clarity for that. That's what I assumed coming into this, but then after Councilor McConnell's point, then I got thinking again on this. But I just want to make sure we're all comfortable with that, because this is a pretty dramatic change to two fairly well-traveled blocks in town. Lee did note it. I mentioned it the last time and went along with removing the sidewalk because it was only the one block. This is 2 more blocks. And I think the rationale is very strong here. But at the same time, this is going to be a major change for the community. And I think there could be some people in town that are not happy with this. I think, we have to make sure that it's very well rationalized and explained that we're doing this for accessibility reasons. And it's not just pure cost cutting, because people could see that as a loss of a service going to one sidewalk on those 2 blocks.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure everyone's clear on this, because we haven't discussed this too much tonight, and that's going to be the major thing that residents will see on that block is the loss of the one side of sidewalks. So not seeing anybody else has any opposition to that or wants to discuss it any further. So I think we're good, and we can go back and proceed with the motion. So we do have the motion to approve phase 1 and phase 2. I don't think I need to read it again. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And well, it's 8:38. Let's take a break. We've been at this for 2.5 hours. So let's take 10 quick, and we'll resume at about 8:40.